I want to talk about cluster bombs right now while I have you, Mr. Secretary. President Biden made the very controversial decision to provide these cluster munitions, these cluster bombs, to Ukraine. Will Ukraine be able to achieve what will they be able to achieve on the battlefield with these cluster munitions, these cluster bombs, that could potentially justify the risk that is out there? And you're familiar with cluster bombs, the risk to civilians down the road.
This is an artillery-intensive fight, Wolf. We've seen large amounts of artillery be employed on both sides of the fence. And so that puts a strain on the international supply of munitions, artillery munitions. And so what we did early on was we engaged our industrial base and asked them to expand their capacity, and also the international industrial base. We've worked with other countries to do the same. We have what we need, and we'll continue to have what we need to support our plants in the United States of America. But we want to make sure that Ukraine has what it needs to be able to continue the fight while that expansion is taking place. These cluster munitions act as kind of a bridging capability. And so we want them to be able to continue to keep pressure on the enemy throughout and support their maneuver plans. And so that's why the president made this deliberate decision to provide this.
But you realize the potential dangers that these cluster bombs have out there. If they don't go off down the road, they potentially could go off if they're just left in areas, and there could be kids and civilians, men and women and children, who could get killed or wounded as a result of these munitions. And that's why more than 100 countries, including several NATO allies, have banned the use of these cluster bombs.
I do, Wolf. I know how these munitions work. I've actually used them in combat. The Ukrainians have committed, first of all, I think we should remember that they are fighting hard to defend their sovereign territory. They're not asking for the munitions to go invade another country, as the Russians did. They've been using cluster munitions from the very beginning, Wolf, as you know. And their munitions have a dead rate of some 30 to 40%, which is quite remarkable. But the Ukrainians have committed in writing to make sure that these munitions are used only in the appropriate places, not used against population centers. They will record the places that they use them, and they will prioritize demining efforts, and we'll help them do that in those places where they've used these munitions.
How long do you think the U.S. will need to provide these cluster bombs to Ukraine?
We want to make sure that Ukraine can remain successful in their fight, Wolf. And so, I won't speculate as to how long that's going to take. We're going to stay focused on making sure that they have what they need to continue to provide the support for their maneuver. And so that's where we've been from the very beginning, and we'll stay focused on that.
What are the biggest challenges, Mr. Secretary, that the Ukrainian military is facing right now as they begin and they continue their counteroffensive against the Russians?
Clearing the minefields, Wolf, has been their biggest challenge to date, and they've undertaken taken a very deliberate process in doing that so that they can conserve manpower. They still have a lot of capability left in terms of forces available, but clearing the minefields is what presented them the greatest challenge thus far.
How is that Ukrainian counteroffensive going right now?
I'll let the Ukrainians speak to provide their own assessment of how things are going. But again, they continue to press the. We knew, by the way, from the very beginning that this would be a very tough fight. You've heard me say that, Wolf. You've heard General Milley say that, and it will continue to be a tough fight. And they will, as they clear these minefields, they'll take a very deliberate approach to this. And once they have that done, again, they have a lot of forces available that they can maneuver.
Where does the delivery of F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine stand right now? I know the NATO allies are training Ukrainian pilots to fly these F-16s, but the actual delivery, where does that stand?
Well, we got to get as you know, this involves a number of steps. First of all, you have to get the pilots trained. and the Netherlands and Denmark are leading that effort. A number of other countries have joined in on that consortium. But they're also looking at, as they do that, we know that we have to have a maintenance capability, so they're also training maintainers as well. And then there's sustainment that goes along with it. And then there's improvements to airfields. And so there are a number of things that have to take place, and this doesn't happen in days. It takes months to bring about that capability. But again, Netherlands and Denmark are doing a credible job, a remarkable job in moving out. They're enlisting the aid of other countries, and they will provide that capability as quickly as we can.
No sense of, give me a timeline when those first fighter F-16s will arrive?
I'll let them speak for the pace of the efforts there. But
that's
we got to get the pilots trained first, and do some other things as well.
As you know, some far-right Republicans in the House, they're trying to use the annual defense bill to cut funding to Ukraine. For example, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene called it a red line. How much does that undercut President Biden's push for unity in Washington as far as support for Ukraine is concerned?
Well, we're hopeful, certainly hopeful. We've enjoyed bipartisan support for Ukraine throughout, Wolf, and we're hopeful that we'll maintain that support. Ukraine matters. Ukraine matters not just to Ukraine, it matters to the whole world. This is about the rules-based international order. And countries around the world realize that. And that's why, as we pull together allies and partners to in a combined effort to work to provide security assistance to Ukraine, that's why we got so many people that participated from the very beginning and still participate. This is important to the whole world.
It's critically important indeed. Let's turn to Russia, Mr. Secretary, while I have you. After that failed rebellion that we all saw unfold in Russia, do you believe Putin has full command of the Russian military and those mercenary fighters at the same time?
Well, I think, I don't want to speculate on what he has or doesn't have. I would just say that I think we all believe that he has challenges. He certainly probably didn't expect those kind of challenges. And it'll be interesting to see how he recovers from this, or whether or not he can recover from it, in the long term.
You think he can?
He's a very resilient person, and I wouldn't put anything past him. But having said that, we're going to stay focused on making sure that Ukraine has what it needs to continue to focus on this fight and be successful.
Do you know where Yevgeny Prigozhin, the mercenary leader of the Wagner Group, is right now?
I don't. I've been very surprised that he's been able to move in and out of Russia at will, and so we'll see what happens going forward. But I don't know where he is right now.
All right, let's talk a little bit. A sensitive issue, very sensitive issue. The Pentagon has faced some sharp criticism, as you know, because it's blocking the International Criminal Court from getting U.S. evidence of Russian war crimes in Ukraine. Why is that?
Well, let me just say up front that I will support any effort to make sure that we're doing the right things to bring war criminals to justice. And so, there are a number of ways to do that, but we're going to continue to work with the intel community and others to provide that information.
But why not provide that information to the International Criminal Court?
Again, that's whether or not the United States does that. That's a policy decision that's made by the president. So.
And where does the Defense Department stand on that?
Well, whatever the decision the president makes, of course, we'll support that.